When I was around 5 years old, my parents purchased their first ever video cassette recorder, a Betamax, and to celebrate they rented a double bill of Clash of the Titans and the 1980 pulp adventure cult classic, Flash Gordon. While I very much enjoyed Clash of the Titans, I absolutely loved Flash Gordon, so that was the movie that I popped back into the VCR the next morning.
Give me the remote control!
The year was 1982, and such was the life-changing beauty of the VCR's technology. You could pause, rewind and re-watch your favourite films as often as you wanted. Well, almost. I must have viewed Flash Gordon at least 3 or 4 times that weekend before I sadly learned that the concept of renting meant we would eventually have to return these movies to the video shop.
The bloody bastards!
The introduction of the Betamax VCR into our home would forever change my childhood play patterns. From that moment on, my weekends consisted of me re-watching my favourite video rentals and then reenacting many of the scenes with my action figures. Yet the problem I had following my first ever Betamax experience is that all I wanted to do afterwards was play with Flash Gordon action figures. But I didn't own any. I asked my parents if they would buy me some, yet I quickly learned that there were no Flash Gordon toys available in the UK in 1982.
I thought it might amuse you to know this.
And later in life, I would discover that I'd missed out on the best Flash Gordon action figures ever made by just 4 short years.
Better late than never!
Come with me, toy fans.
Flash! Ah! Savior of the universe!
Gordon's alive!
In 1978, Mego released their stunning Flash Gordon action figure range, which consisted of 4 beautifully designed characters and 1 medium-sized playset. Yet before we discuss the toys themselves, let's take a look back at the history of how these figures first came to be, because they remain a quite unique entry in the Mego canon.
Later, I like to play with things a while.
Throughout the 1970s, the Mego Corporation would become one of the most prolific manufacturers of action figures in the world. This journey began in 1971 when they first released Action Jackson, which was a sort of cheaper, smaller knockoff version of Hasbro's G.I. Joe. While the Action Jackson line was largely considered a failure, its concept of employing one basic body type with only one different head component used to create different characters was very cost effective. This meant that as Mego secured new licenses, they could reuse the Action Jackson body, pop on a different head and clothing, and they could produce a brand new franchise on the cheap.
Precisely, Doctor.
Mego used this approach to create the world's greatest superheroes line in 1972, and this range was a runaway success that would go on to become the most popular line of action figures ever produced by the company. As the decade progressed, the Mego Corporation would secure a host of new licenses, allowing them to manufacture action figures based on everything from Planet of the Apes to Star Trek and many, many more. For the first 5 years of production, Mego manufactured all of these figures in the 8-inch scale that had been established by Action Jackson. Then in 1976 the company would dip its toe into a different scale for the first time when they released their Muhammad Ali doll, which stood 9¼ inches tall. The following year, Mego would also go on to produce a 12-inch range of superheroes, with the idea being that this larger scale would offer more value to customers, and these taller figures were initially exclusive to Canada, the United Kingdom and parts of Europe. The larger scales allowed for far greater detail to be captured in the sculpts, so in 1978 Mego made a solid attempt to establish a new 10-inch tall action figure scale.
You know it yourself.
The company secured several new licenses that year, 2 of which were chosen for development into the 10-inch scale, and they were Flash Gordon and Logan's Run. Unfortunately, the Logan's Run collection was halted by Mego prior to Toy Fair 1978, when they learned of the cancellation of the Logan's Run TV series. This meant that the Flash Gordon line would later be recognised as the only 10-inch tall Mego figures ever released in North America. Yet they remain Mego's finest work, with their wonderful face sculpts, beautifully tailored clothing and bountiful selection of unique accessories. The range included Flash Gordon, Dale Arden, Dr. Zarkov and Ming the Merciless, and each figure was sold on a blister card that featured some classic Alex Raymond artwork. Mego card art was often altered before the figures were sold in the United Kingdom, and this page from a 1978 British toy catalogue shows a completely different packaging design for these figures. For decades, the Mego collecting community believed that this style of packaging was never actually released. That was until a UK carded example of Dale Arden was unearthed in 2015. And it's a real shame that the British packaging isn't more readily available, as I find it to be vastly superior to the American design. When Mego released the Flash Gordon line, the toys were featured in the company's 1978 trade catalogue. And this was the first piece that I added to my Mego Flash Gordon collection, as I was able to acquire a genuine example of this catalogue a number of years ago.
Must be my lucky day.
The design of each of these action figures is remarkably accurate to the way the characters appeared in the original comic strips. And Mego's meticulous attention to detail was poured into every sculpt, accessory and piece of clothing. Flash Gordon is wearing his signature blue and red costume, with yellow piping running down the seam of his trousers, and an intricately woven gold collar stitched to his tunic. His face sculpt is also superb, and it truly evokes the wholesome, heroic nature of Flash's character. His vinyl boots have an interesting metallic sheen to them, and they include moulded spurs that can be easily snapped off if you don't handle them very carefully. Mego's Flash Gordon range is the most heavily accessorised line of action figures they ever produced. Flash wears a brown crossbelt, and tucked inside the carded blister of this action figure is a small sticker sheet, featuring 2 yellow circles that are designed to be attached to the belt. These stickers very rarely turn up on loose examples, but if you're a completist collector, you'll want to ensure they are included, as they add a nice pop of colour to the finished figure.
What do you mean? Flash Gordon approach.
Flash also comes with 2 pieces of headdress. First up we have his trademark wrestling style headgear, as well as a blue fighting helmet with yellow plume. On his left shoulder Flash carries a nicely detailed shield, and he is armed with 3 different weapons. A dagger and scabbard can be stowed in his boot, with his pistol and sword carried on the belt. Mego did a very nice job of making the pistol look like the ray guns that appeared in the comics, and the sword looks great too, even if it can be quite challenging to get the figure to hold it. All of these weapon accessories are extremely fragile, but none more so than the pistol holster. If you're lucky enough to own an unbroken Flash Gordon pistol holster, then I recommend that you never close the flap, because they are so prone to splitting along the seam that many mint in package examples have cracked apart inside the blister.
What a damn nuisance!
Dr. Zarkov comes with the exact same accessories as Flash, even down to the boots, but his outfit is totally unique, with a vinyl moon symbol being attached to the tunic. Zarkov's face sculpt is also excellent, and whether it was intentional or not, I do appreciate the fact that his skin tone is noticeably different to Flash Gordon's. Dale Arden is the only female character in the range, and this figure comes with a beautiful face and rooted hair just like a Barbie doll. Instead of issuing a pair of boots to Dale, Mego instead chose to mould the footwear straight onto the figure's legs, and most of her other accessories are unique too. While Dale does come with the same pistol and holster as Flash and Zarkov, her sword and daggers are different, as they both feature smaller handles. Finally, Dale Arden is adorned with a crown that is held in place with a small piece of elastic. Rounding out this quartet of action figures, we have Flash Gordon's arch nemesis,
Ming the Merciless, ruler of the universe.
Once again we have another wonderful head sculpt featured here, and Ming comes with the most nicely tailored costume of the entire set. His boots differ to the ones issued to Flash and Zarkov, as these accessories are jet black and they do not have spurs. His crossbelt also has a unique design, and while his sword and scabbard is identical to the ones issued to the other male figures, his pistol and holster have been produced in different colours. Ming the Merciless has also been given 2 different pieces of headdress. One of them is a skullcap type helmet that has a nicely sculpted reptile attached to the top, and the other is a green battle helmet that sports a large orange plume. Finally, Ming comes with more stickers than any other figure in the range, with 4 of them being attached to his belt, while the other 2 have been designed to affix to each helmet. According to Mego's 1978 trade catalogue, the way to complete your science fiction adventures was by picking up the futuristic Flash Gordon playset. This vinyl wrapped cardboard playset doubles as an action figure carrying case, and it is adorned with some absolutely stunning graphics that include gorgeous comic art panels which have been printed on either end. Inside there are 2 separate play areas that can be accessed by folding down the opening panels, with Dr. Zarkov's laboratory located on one side and Ming's throne room located on the other. Zarkov's lab is equipped with a large computer station with a viewing screen, and a child could change what the heroes see on the monitor by swapping out the included cardboard inserts. On the other side of the playset, Ming's hall has been decked out with his throne. And that's about it. Overall, this is a very underwhelming playset, but it's worth adding to your collection for the artwork alone. Although the Mego Flash Gordon line remained the only 10-inch tall figures the company would release in the US, they did produce some really nice Doctor Who figures in the same scale for the British, Australian and European markets. And I love the idea of everyone's favourite Time Lord paying a visit to the planet Mego.
Anyone for jelly, baby?
Sadly, the Flash Gordon toy line never took off at retail, and it's a real shame because they are easily the most outstanding figures that Mego ever created, and I would love to see what the company might have added to the range with a second wave. Just think about the possibilities of Hawkmen action figures, or even a Prince Baron.
I knew you were up to something, though I confess I hadn't thought of necrophilia.
Now before I wrap up, I must give a massive shout out to my friends at the Mego Museum, as the research required to complete this video would not have been possible without the wealth of information available on their website. You'll find a link in the video description below. Even though prices have recently shot up for all vintage toy lines, Mego's Flash Gordon range does remain comparatively affordable, and with its limited number of figures, it shouldn't take you years to complete the set if you're so inclined. And if you're a Flash Gordon fan like me, these action figures will become the centrepiece of your collection, as they are by far the best ones ever made. So long live Flash. You might not have saved the Megoverse, but you did save every one of us.
Long live Flash! You've saved your Earth. Have a nice day. Yeah! Ha 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 ha!